Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1187 of the Juicebox Podcast. Kim has type 1 diabetes and 3 children with alopecia. We chat for a little bit about that, but then quickly get into the idea that Kim's been in a number of different trials, including one for a GLP medication, which led to a long conversation about Ozempic and GLP medications. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Are you a U.S. resident who has type 1 diabetes or is the caregiver of someone with type 1? If you are, listen up, because in less than 10 minutes, fewer than 10 minutes, maybe about 10 minutes, you can take a survey at t1dexchange.org. Complete that survey and you have helped with type 1 diabetes research. It is that easy, and you will not be asked one question that you don't know the answer to. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink ag1.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense CGM. An implantable 6-month sensor is what you get with Eversense, but you get so much more. Exceptional and consistent accuracy over 6 months, and distinct on-body vibe alerts when you're high or low. On-body vibe alerts? You don't even know what that means, do you? eversensecgm.com/juicebox. Go find out.
My name is Kim. I've been a type 1 diabetic for almost 31 years. I was originally diagnosed as gestational and switched to type 1 after delivery when nothing changed.
Gestational during, you have 3 kids, right?
I have 3 kids. It was my first pregnancy.
During your first pregnancy. Was that a short or a long time ago?
It was almost 31 years ago.
Oh, that's a long time in my book.
Yeah.
31 years ago.
Yep.
Gestational, one of 3 kids. Any of the kids have type 1?
They do not.
No type 1 for the kids. How about in your family extended?
My grandmother had either type 2 or type 1. She was on insulin, had many problems from her diabetes, but she was diagnosed very late in life. I want to say 60s. Mm-hmm. So, and that was quite a while ago. And I don't know if they actually just assumed it was type 2 or ever did any kind of testing to see what it was or if there was any testing at that point.
Kim, how old are you?
I am 56.
Yeah, you just freaked out young people when you were like, she was old? She was 60? What?
Well, she was older.
Well, back then that was old, though.
Yeah, to be diagnosed.
Yeah. Oh, to be please. 60? What? I mean, this has got to be what? I mean, I don't want to like 50, 80 years or 50, 60 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Have you not had that experience, Kim, of like being the age you are now? I have. My hair is dark, so I might get away with it more, but I'm around other people my age. I'm like, well, I look much younger than you do.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and then you look back a generation. Oh my God, just go back one generation. I look at my mom's picture from when she was my age. I don't know. If you told me she was 70 in some of those photos, I might believe you. So I don't know. Also, I have a very easy job, Kim. I just sit in this chair, so it's not a lot of stress.
Sounds awesome. I'd like that job.
I'm not climbing a building or anything like that. So, you know, maybe it's a little easier. But I really do think it's the dark hair. Honestly, because without the dark hair, then you can kind of see, I have crow's feet, you know, like that kind of stuff. But I think I get away with it from like 10 feet.
I think things are a lot different now, though, too. I don't know. Back when I was younger and I thought about being in my 50s, I like you said, I thought it was ancient. But now my friends all look young. I just feel it's a different world we're living in, and we're not dressing like we're old.
That has a lot to do with it too, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Your activities and things like that. Oh, anyway.
Yep.
Listen, if you wanted to hear me sound young, you should have been here last night when the Phillies blew their chance to go to the World Series, because I sounded like a child while I was screaming in my living room. So
that's how I am every Sunday during football. So yeah. I understand.
What's your football team?
Buffalo Bills.
Oh my goodness. Look at you. You got raised way up with excitement about that boy and then dropped down.
Until this year. Yeah.
Yeah. It looked good for a second, didn't it?
It sure did. Got us excited.
What's the vibe in Buffalo? They paid him and he stopped?
He's still great. It's just, we have so many injuries right now, and I don't know. They're just falling apart. I'm not sure.
That sucks. I'm switching right over to the Eagles. As soon as the Phillies game was over, I shut it off and I thought, I'm going to watch the Eagles game on Sunday. This will be better.
There you go.
So anyway.
Absolutely.
So interestingly enough, I know a little bit more about your family than I usually do before I start. You have 3 children. All 3 children have an autoimmune issue, though, but it's not type 1. What is it?
Correct. They all have alopecia.
When did that come up for them? At different ages, or was it similar for them?
Well, my 2 younger children are twins, and my daughter actually was the first one to show signs of it. And she was probably just turned 4 or about to turn 4. And then her twin brother started with signs of it just a couple of months after that.
Wow.
It was very odd. They both lost most of their hair, and then it would come back. It was spotty back and forth. My daughter ended up growing hers completely back by the time she started kindergarten. And my son, his just remained real patchy until it finally all fell out. And then my daughter's fell out again, of course, lucky her, when she was starting middle school, which was super pleasant.
How do you manage that when you're that age? If you take insulin or sulfonylureas, you are at risk for your blood sugar going too low. You need a safety net when it matters most. Be ready with Gvoke HypoPen. My daughter carries Gvoke HypoPen everywhere she goes because it's a ready-to-use rescue pen for treating very low blood sugar in people with diabetes ages 2 and above that I trust. Low blood sugar emergencies can happen unexpectedly, and they demand quick action. Luckily, Gvoke HypoPen can be administered in 2 simple steps, even by yourself in certain situations. Show those around you where you store Gvoke HypoPen and how to use it. They need to know how to use Gvoke HypoPen before an emergency situation happens. Learn more about why Gvoke HypoPen is in Arden's Diabetes Toolkit at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used if you have a tumor in the gland on the top of your kidneys called a pheochromocytoma, or if you have a tumor in your pancreas called an insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for safety information.
It was very rough. She wore a wig. And then she reached a point in high school where she just said she's had enough. It's too uncomfortable. She took it off, and now she's 27 and she does not wear it.
Oh, good for her. Do you think it bothers her at this point?
It's hard for me to tell. I don't think so. She actually, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but she has a laundry list of autoimmune disorders. And honestly, I think maybe the alopecia is just the least of her problems, so she doesn't really care.
How many people listening know that phrase? Oh, that's the least of my worries.
The laundry list?
Yeah, that's the least of my worries. That's something everyone else would freak out about. I'm like, yeah, I don't even think about that.
Yep, absolutely.
Sucks, but it is. Well, what else does she have going on?
She has celiacs. She has Crohn's. She has Raynaud's, if I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
To get away from the autoimmunes, she also has Chiari and has had 2 brain surgeries.
I don't know that one. I'm sorry.
It's the brain tissue extends into her spinal cord. So she had to have surgeries to have that taken care of. And the first surgery actually landed her in a wheelchair for a while, but she's now past that. She's doing well. So it's been a long road for her. She's had a lot of problems.
Oh my gosh. Is she, I don't know what the word is. Like, is she thriving now? Is she an adult and working and enjoying her life?
Absolutely. She doesn't hold a job. She has a lot of memory issues from the brain surgeries. So unfortunately, at a young age, after getting a college degree, she's on permanent disability. But she's definitely living a normal life besides the memory issues and things like that would just make it difficult for her to hold a job.
Long-term or short-term memory?
A little of each, mostly short-term.
That's interesting. Jesus. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear all that, obviously, but I'm glad she's like, I don't know what the words are there, making the best of her situation, and.
Yep. She has a son and she's doing great.
Wow. Oh, geez. That's something else. What about the other two?
Oh, then my oldest son, he developed alopecia in his 20s, went through the whole childhood without it. And then trying to think now, he'll be 31 in January. I want to say he was probably about 25 when he started showing the patchy signs of it. And then all three of them right now are they have no hair on their bodies whatsoever.
Same dad?
Yes.
Okay. Look at you. Look at you, Kim.
My high school sweetheart. So
is he still with you? You allow him to stay?
Yes.
Look at that.
He's been around for a while. So
how kind you are letting him live in the house still. Wonderful. Well, okay. Well, that's something else. So you have gestational diabetes and then you give birth. Does the gestational dissipate or does it stick around and they tell you have type 2?
Well, it started when I drank the wonderful drink and they told me that I had gestational, they sent me home on diet control. And they told me to keep in touch with them and let me know if my numbers changed or if I had any issues. And the next day they weren't super high, but I want to say it was a while ago, but I'm thinking I was running around 130, 140, which is high for being pregnant. And I called them and I told them that, and they said, well, we want you to get to the hospital right away. You need to start insulin. And I'll never forget it. That was on a Thursday and my baby shower was supposed to be that Saturday. So I'm freaking out thinking I'm going to be in the hospital for my baby shower. And I go to the hospital and I asked how long I'm going to be there. And they're like, well, as soon as you can give yourself the shot, you can leave. So I learned how to do the shot within an hour, probably. They kept me a day, watched me, and then just sent me home, just teaching me how to do the insulin. And at that point it was NPH and R. So it was, just the old stuff and how to do it. There was no carb counting or sliding scale or anything really. And they gave me very, very little education on it. But they monitored me very close then because of the diabetes through the rest of the pregnancy. They ended up doing a C-section 3 weeks before he was due. As soon as I delivered, they took me off the insulin. They assumed I didn't need it. And I think if I remember correctly, I was okay for a little while, but then within a couple of days, I was out of control again. And they finally realized, well, maybe there's something else going on. And they put me back on the insulin. But again, with very little education, they didn't tell me much at all. And then one day, my son was about a month. And the only thing I remember of this incident was waking up in an ambulance. But in the middle of the night, my husband said he woke up and I was sitting up in bed, rocking back and forth with my hands clenched against my face. And he said my eyes were wide open and he had no idea what was going on or what to do because nobody explained the possibilities of these low blood sugars or anything. So from there, they obviously took me to the hospital, gave me the glucose, got me back in working order and sent me home. But still it was very strange when I look back at it. And after listening to your podcast and about all these people's diagnosis, I had no signs of diabetes whatsoever before I was diagnosed as gestational. And I don't think I had a high A1C. I never had any problems. So it's all very strange to try and figure it all out and piece it together, what happened and how it happened. But from there, I definitely needed the insulin. They taught me a little bit more about the insulin, but still, I had at least 2 more episodes like that in the middle of the night. And they never told me about glucagon. I was never really instructed on any of the possibilities of anything happening like that.
Do you have a meter?
I had a meter at the time, yeah.
But was it a thing you used?
I did.
Yeah. But you didn't.
Probably not as much as I should have, but I did.
I wouldn't imagine. I mean, if you don't get any education about it, I don't know how you'd even imagine when to, especially in the beginning. It could take you a couple of years to figure it out if nobody's going to tell you anything about it.
And it did.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would imagine. That's something. Wow. When did your management change? I mean, when did they tell you for sure this is type 1, not type 2?
I honestly don't know if they ever actually came out with those words, or they just kind of told me that I had to start using the insulin. And then as my care has gone on, they've used type 1, but they never did any tests or anything to see what it was.
That's crazy. What's the first transition from your first methods, the regular and the MPH, to the next one? How long did you do that for?
It was quite a while. I was very stubborn. And when pens came out, they made me very nervous because when I used the needle and the vial, I could see how much insulin was in there and I could see how much was going into my body. With the pen, I felt like I lost that control and I couldn't physically see it, and it made me nervous.
Interesting.
So I fought that for a very long time and stayed on the needles and with the vials of insulin.
Kim, that's a really interesting. I don't imagine it's unique. I bet you a lot of people feel that way. But I mean, that's a leap, isn't it? Oh, they gave me this medical device. One of them I can see the liquid and the other one I can't. And because I can't see it, I don't trust it.
It was very scary to me because I wasn't sure how much I was actually getting at that point.
Even though it said you've dialed up 2 units.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I had trust issues.
I was going to ask you, actually, my next question is, do you have trust issues in your life other than this?
I really don't. No, it was just something with that. I mean, I guess I just didn't want to be in a situation where my blood sugars were going out of control, and it was because I didn't get the proper amount of insulin.
Because you couldn't verify.
Correct.
Yeah. By the way, I don't disagree with the idea or the feeling. I mean, but it's a leap because I bet you a lot of people don't think twice about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once I finally did switch to the pens, I kicked myself. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner, but it did take me quite a while.
And those pens were what back then? Humalog?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you're using Humalog, and what was your basal at that point?
I know I was on Lantus for a while. I don't know if that was my first.
Okay. But yeah, something like that.
I honestly don't remember.
Gotcha. And do you use a pump now, or are you still MDI?
I am still MDI. I'm contemplating going to a pump, but I am currently participating in a study which doesn't allow me to be on a pump. So I have to wait until the study is over.
Are you allowed to tell me about the study?
Sure. A study for once a week basal insulin. And unfortunately, I didn't get that. But I did get all the benefits of the study, which is all of my supplies, my Dexcom, everything for free for a year. I get paid to be in the study, which is another perk. And I get very close care. And since I've been in the study, I've brought my A1C down since December from a 7.5 to a 6.4. Wow. So even though I'm not getting the study drug, it's been very beneficial to me.
So I understand what a double-blind study is, right? But this isn't blinded. You know if you're getting the drug or not?
Yes, okay. Because they can't not give you your insulin. So
that was where I was at on that. I was like, wait, yeah. Some people get saline? That doesn't make sense. What would that teach us?
No.
Right.
Yeah, they can't do that. So you know right up front if you're getting it or not. But they ended up changing the insulin that I was on. I was on Novolog and Basaglar at the time. And now I'm on Humalog and Trulicity.
So they put you on the Trulicity, and that's kind of what they're studying against. And then
correct.
And how often do you shoot Trulicity though?
It's Trulicity. Maybe I misspoke. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Tresiba. I'm sorry.
Oh, Tresiba.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry because they call it something else. They call it Degludec.
Yes, I imagine that's what they call it. I got you. So
yes.
So what do you shoot that how often?
Once a day. That's my basal.
That's still your basal once a day. But they're saying we have a magic one you'll shoot once a week.
Correct.
And then they gave it to somebody and not you.
Yes.
And were you pissed about that?
At first I was, but then when I saw the benefits that I was getting from this and how it was really helping me, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting paid, you're getting a free CGM. How long does the study go for?
A little over a year.
No. How long has it been so far?
I started in December, so it'll go I think it's till the beginning of February. It'll be over.
Oh, you have a few more months. Okay.
This is actually the second study that I've done. And the first one, was for Ozempic, to see if Ozempic worked for type 1s. They were trying to get it approved.
Mm-hmm.
That one I was lucky enough and I got the Ozempic. So that was nice.
Oh, Kim, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, it's very similar to your situation now.
Yeah. How long were you on it? This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the only 6-month wear implantable CGM on the market. And it's very unique. So you go into an office. I've actually seen an insertion done online, like a live one, they recorded it. The entire video is less than 8 minutes long, and they're talking most of the time. The insertion took no time at all, right? So you go into the office, they insert the sensor. Now it's in there and working for 6 months. You go back 6 months later, they pop out that one, put in another one. So 2 office visits a year to get really accurate and consistent CGM data. But that's neither here nor there for what I'm trying to say. So this thing's under your skin, right? And you then wear a transmitter over top of it. Transmitter's got this nice, gentle silicone adhesive that you change daily. So very little chance of having skin irritations. That's a plus. So you put the transmitter on, it talks to your phone app, tells you your blood sugar, your alerts, your alarms, etc. But if you want to be discreet for some reason, you take the transmitter off, just swoop, comes right off. No, not like peeling at it or having to rub off adhesive. It just kind of pops right off. This silicone stuff, really cool. You'll say it. And now you're ready for your big day, whatever that day is. It could be a prom or a wedding or just a moment when you don't want something hanging on your arm. The Eversense CGM allows you to do that without wasting a sensor, because you just take the transmitter off, and then when you're ready to use it again, you pop it back on. Maybe you just want to take a shower without rocking a sensor with a bar of soap. Just remove the transmitter and put it back on when you're ready. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. You really should check it out. The Contour NextGen blood glucose meter is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and it's entirely possible that it is less expensive in cash than you're paying right now for your meter through your insurance company. That's right. If you go to my link, contournext.com/juicebox, you're going to find links to Walmart, Amazon, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Kroger, and Meijer. You could be paying more right now through your insurance for your test strips and meter than you would pay through my link for the Contour NextGen and Contour Next test strips in cash. What am I saying? My link may be cheaper out of your pocket than you're paying right now, even with your insurance. And I don't know what meter you have right now. I can't say that. But what I can say for sure is that the Contour NextGen meter is accurate. It is reliable, and it is the meter that we've been using for years. contournext.com/juicebox. And if you already have a Contour meter and you're buying test strips, doing so through the Juicebox Podcast link will help to support the show.
From May of 2021 until November. It was supposed to be longer, but they pulled me off because I lost too much weight. So they had to pull me off.
Did you gain it back?
I lost 40 pounds and I've gained 5 back after almost 2 years. So,
Kim, can I tell you something? I just learned something about myself. I don't think I enjoyed being fat. That almost made me cry. Oh wow. It did absolutely nothing for my blood sugars, but just that changed my entire life because now it gave me more energy. I exercise daily. I've been able to keep the weight off. I just feel better about myself. It's been wonderful. Are you a small person too? I saw you for a minute when we were starting. You're not tall.
We actually took a picture together a couple of months ago.
That's right. Okay. All right. So
at the type 1 thing, but I'm only 5'1", so I'm pretty short.
Yeah, Kim, I know how tall you are, but the people listening don't know. So I was trying to lead you to it. That's
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. That's all right.
Yes, I am 5'1".
So you're now they're like, he knows the answers to some of the questions he's asking. I'm trying to get the information to you all.
I'm blowing your cover. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry. Wow, you lost 40 pounds at 5'1". Are you willing to tell me what you weigh now and what you weighed then?
I was 170. I went down to 129 and now I'm 135.
Wow. I'm very happy for you. That's wonderful.
It's been great.
I'm right at the 40-pound mark right now.
And it just feels amazing, doesn't it?
It's insane how much better my life is.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't even know another way to really say it other than you'll have like GI side effects from it at some point. I mean, not everybody maybe, but I did. I've had a couple of moments where I was like, I don't think this is what everybody would want, but who cares?
Yep.
I mean, like, are you kidding me? Like, I just have to live through this little side effect for 6 weeks and then it passes. Like I had heartburn for a while in the beginning. I had that feeling for a while that when you ate, the food felt like it stopped in the middle of your chest. Did you ever have that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's not what was happening, by the way. It was just a feeling.
Yep.
So I was like, well, this is uncomfortable and I don't care. So, because I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I've had experiences on Ozempic, Kim. Like there was this one night a couple of weeks ago, my wife went away for business and she was going for like 2 days. And I was like all by myself. And, like a lot of guys might get hookers or Coke or something. I got sorbet. that was me going crazy. I was like, I'm going to get some mango sorbet. I feel like an idiot telling.
Were you able to eat it?
Well, yeah.
Can you eat a whole serving of something?
Well, so I could. And not only that, I just ate the whole pint of it. I hadn't had something like that in so long. I sat down, I was watching something at the end of the night, and I just kept eating the sorbet. It's good. I love it. And it's one of the only things, I'm on Wegovy, but it's Ozempic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if people don't understand that, it's the same molecule rebranded for different insurance reasons. There are things I can eat without feeling too full. And like liquidy, like that, the sorbet I can. Right? That I can eat without feeling full. And so this is like, and it still tastes sweet to me. And a lot of things don't taste overly sweet anymore. Anyway, I start eating it and I just don't stop. I was like, I remember being fat and loving sorbet and I ate the whole thing in one night. And I'm telling you this because I woke up the next day, I was a pound lighter than I was the day before.
Really? Yeah. Nice.
And I just
thought, maybe you should eat more sorbet, huh?
Well, I considered lying to myself and saying that. But moreover, I just think that I was on my way to losing weight that day anyway. And eating that didn't impede it. And it was just crazy because if I would have eaten that prior to this medication, I 100% would have woken up like heavier or bloated or something the next day.
Right.
But to your point, and I do want to hear about your experience as well, my body being smaller is a significant psychological uptick for me. Like I now find myself, I left the room the other day. I was with Arden and I left the room and I had to go out and do some things. And she was going to be by herself for a few hours. And I was wearing, I don't know, like a black pullover. And actually it was a Cozy Earth hoodie. You guys could save 40% at CozyEarth.com on your entire order if you use the offer code Juicebox at checkout. I was wearing a black pullover and some pants. And I stood there and I thought, this doesn't look like me. I was in front of a full-length mirror, which I don't find myself very frequently. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't recognize this as my body. And then I went out into public, actually where I had another experience where I saw you, where I was walking around that giant hotel. It's so big, I just kept seeing people and thinking, oh, I look like everyone else now. Like that feeling like I'm not different. I'm blending in the crowd. It's not an enduring feeling. It hasn't bothered me. It's not something I even thought about in the past, but it was something I recognized. I physically look different. But the way I feel is insane. I sleep better. I used to have, I couldn't eat after a certain time at night because I'd have terrible heartburn overnight. I was taking stuff for heartburn. That's completely gone now. The heartburn that I even experienced in the beginning with the Wegovy, I don't even know if I can blame the Wegovy or if it was just my body like adjusting to like, because it was already a dumpster fire as far as that goes. I mean, I'm losing weight. I don't look like it's my skin's shrinking. So I'm not like crazy flabby anywhere or anything like that. Energy is much different. Mental energy is different. Physical energy is different.
No.
If I grew a horn tomorrow, I would cut it off and just go, oh, well.
Yep. I totally agree. And there's still times at this point, even though it's been a while for me, if I'm outside someplace and I walk by a store window and I catch a glimpse of myself, I'm like, who is that? Mm-hmm. It still doesn't sink in that it happened.
I'm doing a talk in Austin this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this like 9:30, I think it's 9:30 a.m. or 10 a.m. to like 3:30. Like, and we're just going to have this, there's 350 people got tickets. People were terrific from the podcast. And it's a free event. There'll be 350 people there. Jenny and I are just going to sit up on stage and talk. Like, it's going to be very long form and conversational, not like if anybody's ever been to these things. Usually someone stands up on a stage, the lectern, and kind of gives you a presentation. Like, we're not doing that. It's going to be like this kind of very comfortable conversation. Anyway, when we're setting up what it was going to look like, I said to the person running it, I'd like to sit in a chair and talk, like kind of firesidey, like just put Jenny and I in chairs next to each other. And the person who's running the whole thing, Jenna, really lovely person named Jenna. I said, yeah, I want to sit down. And I shared with Jenna later, that is not a thing I would have asked her for last year. I would not have been comfortable seated in front of people because of the way my body would have folded. And I wouldn't have been comfortable because my stomach would have like caused pressure, and it would have made it harder for me to talk if I was sitting down. And I was like, I'm going to sit down. And I know that seems like a really small, weird thing, but I'm excited that I'll be able to sit in front of people and I won't look a mess. And it won't impact me physically either. So anyway.
It does a lot for you. It's a great feeling.
Mm.
And it's funny because I knew I was overweight, but I always in my mind felt like I carry it okay. I'm okay. And when I look back on those pictures, I'm shocked now.
It's funny because people at first they're like, you're so thin, and I'm not. I'm just thinner than they're used to seeing me. Like I'm not like, you don't see my bones sticking out anywhere or anything like that. I actually heard Anthony Anderson was on this show at one point. He's an actor who has like type 2 diabetes. And I don't know his situation. I don't know how he's losing weight, but he's lost weight over the years. Anyway, I saw a picture on his social media the other day where his kind of shins and his ankles were exposed. And someone jumped into his comments and said, yo, man, your ankles are really thin. And he said, actually, they're not. That's the size they've always been. They're just not surrounded by a bunch of fat and water anymore.
Wow.
And I thought, man, he's right. Like, he's absolutely right. He doesn't look thin. Like, he looks, I think, the way we're supposed to look.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
It didn't touch your blood sugar, though.
No, it didn't do anything for my blood sugar.
That's so crazy.
Some people with type 1 do get results from it. I did not.
Okay. I mean, I think that's valid. I don't want to give somebody's details away, but there's a girl whose mother I'm aware of, and maybe I don't even want to give her, like, she's like 13, 15 in that range right there, right? And it worked for her for weight and for blood sugar, to the point where there are days she's like, it feels like they're honeymooning again.
That's great.
And having to adjust insulin down. And I have to tell you that this last weekend, I was having a conversation with Arden's endocrinologist. And, well, Arden and I were both having a conversation. I don't want to make it sound like I call Arden's doctors without Arden. We were having a conversation. And she said, when you come home from college, I'm going to look into putting you on Ozempic. She's like, because we're seeing, and this is really me talking out of school, so everybody be real aware of that. But she said, I'm starting to see not just about like insulin, what they call insulin resistance, but Arden uses a little more insulin than you might expect for her weight, right? And for what she eats. On top of that, they're seeing some impacts for hormonal impacts for people on it as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm going to just do this right now with the Google machine. And I just Googled female hormone GLP-1. And if you're interested, you should look into it. Like, does GLP-1 affect estrogen? And, so they're just starting to see this stuff, as people are using it longer. So she's like, maybe we should give that a try for you. But I mean, if Arden's insulin use went down 20% even on this, I would think that was valuable for her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
that would be great.
Because I'm going to assume then it's not so much about the insulin, but about like spikes at meals and things like that. Maybe they'd be less insulin at a meal time, which might, lead to fewer lows and maybe more stability and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm interested to see what all comes from this, because they were doing studies on GLP-1 and kidney disease, and the initial data was so overwhelmingly positive, they canceled the study because they said, we don't need to keep doing this. This just helps. That's insane. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, the kidney benefits of GLP-1 RA include reduction in wow, I don't know what that word is, which may be driven in part by reductions in blood pressure and A1C with age. So basically what I think we're finding, because they're also saying that people on GLP-1s are having fewer heart attacks. So I don't think this is like hard to understand, but when your body's not carrying around all that extra weight and all of the metabolic problems that come along with that, it turns out other systems work better too. So, and I don't look at Arden as a person who needs to lose weight, by the way. I'm not saying that, but
no,
but it's just very interesting. So
yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of benefits to it that I wasn't even aware of at the time.
Yeah, right. And even stuff but it worked for you. Like, so what did it do for you mostly? How'd you lose the weight?
Oh, I couldn't eat anything. The one story that stands out in my mind is I went through the entire summer and I was in bed by 8:00 at night or even before that because I was exhausted. I was eating next to nothing. There was one day where I was feeling pretty good and I was craving, this sounds gross to me now, but I was craving a meatloaf sandwich with gravy and French fries. And I just wanted to go out for that. So my husband and I went out for dinner. I ordered that. I looked at it. I think I took one bite. That was it. I took it home with me. I got 3 dinners, 3 lunches out of it and threw the rest of it out because there was still leftovers from it. And
you wouldn't order it again, right? It seems distasteful to you now?
Yep.
I have that too. Yeah. There's just food I look at and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, that seems disgusting to me now. I tried a number of things along the years. Like I've talked about on here, I completely eliminated oils from my life, except for I'll cook a little bit with cold pressed olive oil only. I make popcorn with coconut oil, but I don't really eat very much of it. It's for other people. So there's no like processed oil in the house, right? I won't eat deep fried things anymore. And like you make that change to your life and you're like, well, this will help. And you know it's a good change, right? And it is, but then it didn't do anything. Like I made that big elimination in my life and it's not like I lost 20 pounds or something. And I was like, come on, like I don't drink sugar. I don't like, you know what I mean? Like I do most of the things you're supposed to do. And the only thing that makes sense to me at this point is that my body has a GLP deficiency, maybe no different than people who have the thyroid deficiency, right? Like you need a thyroid stimulating hormone to help you along if you have hypothyroidism. I don't know that I just don't think I have enough GLP, like, or whatever that, and I'm not a scientist. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I put this stuff in, I started losing weight immediately. And that's not even supposed to happen. Like they'll tell you like, it could take a month for you to start losing weight. Like you're not even on a therapeutic dose when you first start. They're just trying to get your body accustomed to it and bring your body along and stuff like that. I was a week into it. I lost 4 pounds.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I just kept losing weight slowly along the way. I've been at it for like a long time now. Right? Yeah, I've been at it like 9 months now. And it teaches you a lot about like being patient and having like long-term views of things. You know, like a pound a week used to seem to me like that's ridiculous. I have this much weight to lose. If I lose a pound a week, it's going to take me, 20 weeks to lose 20 pounds. Like that's, and then the next week you'd gain 2 pounds or you wouldn't lose. You're like, oh, this is never going to happen. But there's a consistency about this that made me hopeful. If that makes sense.
When I was on the Ozempic, there was a point where I was losing a half a pound a day. The other thing though, with me, I wasn't drinking any alcohol whatsoever. I know you're not a drinker, not a heavy drinker, but I would go out. I would have a couple of drinks. I couldn't even look at alcohol. It would make me sick to even think about it.
Yeah. I can't drink. I didn't drink much soda in my life, but I don't, it's not good now. Like drinking.
Oh, the carbonation was bad
not
too.
Terrific for me. But so it's slowing down for people to understand. It slows down your digestion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to eventually have somebody on the show who's knowledgeable about the science behind it to talk about it, but it slows down your digestion, which decreases your insulin usage. And even for people who don't have diabetes, that's a big deal. That insulin comes in and, it's storing stuff as fat and that's not happening anymore. So my digestion's slower. I mean, you're not hungry because your stomach's full, but also it tells your brain you're not hungry too. I don't know another way to explain that other than I'm not hungry in my head or physically in my stomach. So much so, and this is like, I'm not going to tell this story, but I had to go unexpectedly go visit Arden at college. So I lived my whole day one day on a Friday. I got up at 8:00. I did whatever I did. I ate whatever I ate. I don't remember anymore. At midnight, I was in bed thinking I was going to go to sleep. And the next thing I know, I'm buying a plane ticket and I'm driving to the airport at 4:00 in the morning. And at 7 a.m., after taking a short nap in the airport, and I must have looked homeless, I got up, I got on a plane at 7. I went back to sleep on the plane. I woke up when the plane landed at 10:30. I got into a car. I drove to where Arden was. I spent hours and hours and hours with her. And it was, I think, around 2:00 in the afternoon on Saturday. I'd only slept 3 hours between 8 a.m. Friday morning and 2:00 in the afternoon on Saturday. I thought I was going to pass out. I was at the end of like being able to just tough through this, but we didn't have access to food yet. And I said to Arden, I was like, I have to eat anything. And I just like, we were in a gas station basically. And I bought like a bag of like candy, like hard, like sugary candy. I thought maybe the sugar will like give me enough of a jolt that we can get to where we're going and I can eat something for real. So I had a little bit of that candy there and I drank some diet soda with caffeine in it to try to like literally to try to keep me awake enough to get back to where I was going. And then we got back to where we were going, had a very little bit of food. And then I went to sleep, slept all night long, woke up at 8:00, let Arden sleep 2 more hours, got together at noon on Sunday and headed out and got a turkey sandwich. Right. So you're now hearing that I had a handful of candy between probably 8 p.m. Friday or 6 p.m. Friday and 2 p.m. on Sunday. I was even woozy at one point because I wasn't taking in any nutrition. But you know what I wasn't?
You weren't hungry, I bet.
Was never hungry that entire time. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
Like, that's the only way I can explain it is to tell that story. I never once thought, I'm hungry. I should eat something. Some people hear that and go, oh, that's dangerous. It's not dangerous. You just eat. Like, it's not that you can't eat. It's just that you're not prompted to eat.
Right.
It's really wonderful. Did you have what they call the food noise in your head prior to the Ozempic?
I'm not sure what that is.
People describe it as they wake up in the morning and they are immediately thinking about what they're going to have for breakfast. And then as soon as breakfast is over, or even while they're making breakfast, they start thinking about lunch. They're always thinking about food. Did you have that?
Not really. I don't think from the point that you're saying it. I would sometimes get like that just because of my insulin schedule. I've always been, well, I have to eat at this time because I have to do insulin.
Right.
And that part was a little odd being on the Ozempic too, because I would forget to eat at times. Mm-hmm. And then I would be nervous because it's been hours since I've had any insulin, but it's also been hours since I've had any food.
Yeah.
And that was also a big adjustment.
Yeah. How long did it take you to figure out how to basically, you were fasting for longer gaps of time? I'm assuming you had to adjust your insulin for that, and you were losing weight too.
Yes. Yep. So it definitely, I shouldn't say that it didn't help my blood sugars because it probably did lower my insulin intake, which is beneficial, like you said. But I just didn't feel like my A1C really dropped at all from it.
Mm-hmm. But once you got on the, you're in a study. Your A1C came down the way it did during the study, but why do you think it came down?
No, my A1C is coming down in the second study that I'm on.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Not to do with the Ozempic. Why do you think it's coming down now?
Honestly, I think a lot of it has to just do with the fact that I'm being monitored so closely. There's a lot more accountability for me with this. And the insulin is different. I was on Tresiba in the past, and my insulin stopped, or my insurance company stopped covering it. And they switched me to Basaglar. Mm-hmm. And I just never felt that I got the same results from it. So I don't know if it's because I'm back on the Tresiba, or if it's, I account a lot of it to the accountability and the close monitoring.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the study, I was seen every week. And it made a very big difference for me.
By close monitoring, are you saying I know people are looking, so I do a better job on purpose?
Probably partly because of that, and also because of, from the beginning, seeing my A1C drop and actually like just really enjoying that and being very proud of that. And I wanted to make it go lower and lower and lower. So I was trying harder on my own too.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of it, honestly. It's just the motivation.
Absolutely.
The motivation to actually pre-bolus your meals. And when you get higher to like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stop it. Like that kind of stuff is small. And look at what a big difference it is. Like in the 7s, like I think you'd agree, Kim, like a mid-7s A1C is not, you weren't thrilled with that, I would imagine.
No,
right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. But it was just the way life went and this is how it felt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the 6.4 I'm quite happy with, though.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, of course. And congratulations.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I think that a lot of people report that they use the podcast in the same way as like they use it to remind themselves to do the things they need to do.
Absolutely.
So it's,
yep.
I think that in general is very valuable. Like something to be, not like you're being graded and not like somebody's coming along to check on you, but just a quiet moment in your mind where like, I got to do this thing. I'm going to do it. And, I don't know how to talk about that exactly. It's a responsibility to something, but not something that holds you hostage and makes you feel like you failed if you don't do it. Does that make sense?
For me, it's nice. Something I get out of the group is just having more people around me going through the same thing and hearing what they're doing that's making a difference. I don't really know any diabetics, not a couple of type 2s. I don't think at this point I know any type 1s. Mm-hmm. And I don't have anybody to say, oh yeah, that happened to me. This is what I did, or that happened to me. What did you do?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have the podcast and listening to it and hearing what people do in different situations.
No. Oh yeah. I believe that it's one of the unintended benefits of the show. Like I didn't reach out. I didn't start it thinking, oh, well, people will be able to hear other people and that'll make them feel like, oh, I can do this too. And like, I didn't know any of that was going to happen. That's just stuff that got reported back to me by listeners. And it makes sense now as I look back, but I didn't do it on purpose, so.
Well, it's worked.
Yes. I'll tell you, there are very few times when you think, like, I don't know how other people's minds work. I'm competitive, and I'm very, like, I'm a hardworking, competitive person. Like, so if I make 1, I want to make 2. If I make 2, I want to make 4. Like, I keep going like that. And so because of that, there are often times you don't feel accomplished because you make 1,000, you want 2,000, then suddenly you're in the situation where I'm at now, where like there's like 500,000 downloads a month, and I'm like, I wonder if we could get to 1 million. What an odd thought to have. Instead of just going, I'm 500,000. That's a lot. Every once in a while, I have a moment where I'm like, oh yeah, I can see this is going well. And I have to say, I spoke earlier about speaking in Austin this weekend. The JDRF in Austin came to me, and they were like, we do these things, like these kind of like little office meetings, the local chapter, and somebody comes in and speaks, and she's like, sometimes we get 30, 40 people come to listen to the speaker. Would you like to come down and give like one of these little talks? And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. And so we're chatting a little bit. And I said, so just the people, and you just tell the people in your chapter. And she goes, well, you could tell the people on your Facebook group. And I went, oh, if you do that, we're not going to all fit in that room you're talking about. At first, I think she was sort of like, okay, buddy. I'm sure you and your ego think that, And so I said, no, I'm like, you're going to have, I said, if I'll do that. I said, but if you tell me to make it public, you're going to need to be ready with a bigger space. And she goes, how big? I said, I'm going to guess 500 people. And she goes, our Type 1 Nation events don't get that many. And I was like, have you ever had me at one of your Type 1 Nation events? And she goes, no. And I said, well, then I'm going to tell you 500. So she comes back like a week later and says, I found a space I can get that holds 350 people. And I was like, you're going to disappoint some people. I'm like, but that's okay. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to get the ticketing set up. And she sets it all up and everything. And she's like, you can make the link public now. And I said, okay. I said, it's going to be full in about a day. And there, I think she almost laughed at me. And she gave me the link. I put the link online. And about 36 hours later, the 350 seats were taken.
Oh, that's great.
How she felt aside by it is one thing. But it was a moment for me where I actually went, oh, I'm doing a good job. Like making this podcast. Like instead of just, I didn't hear 350 and think, well, we probably could have got 700. I'm not lying. I did think we could get 500, but I didn't it didn't burden me. I felt good about it.
Well, and it also wasn't your fault. The biggest room she could get was 350. So
Kim, I like the way you're thinking. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I could have filled that space.
You could have pushed that higher. Absolutely.
But it's one of those, it's just a very nice moment where I actually felt accomplished and not like, okay, there's a number, like keep going. It was nice for me because I don't get that very frequently because of the way I'm wired. The way I'm usually wired is I'm just usually like, that's good, more. And
do you think it's that you're not feeling accomplished, or do you just think it's, you can do more and you want to keep doing more?
Well, yeah. And
does that make sense? I mean,
I
look at it as a positive.
Oh, I don't think of it as a negative. I'm just telling you,
okay.
Like I'm well suited for a thing that needs to be in growth mode constantly because I don't find it pressuring. I like it. So the podcast is social media. The Facebook group is social media. Those are things that normally don't ever work. Like I don't talk about this very frequently, but I think there's something like 4 million parked podcasts, meaning like 4 million people have registered a podcast name. Only like, I don't know what it is exactly, like only like 800 and some thousand of them are even active, and active can mean as few as one episode a month. Of those active podcasts, 86% of these 800 and some thousand podcasts only get 130 some downloads per episode. So there's really only 14% of podcasts that are doing better than 136 downloads, like historically for an episode. Like they make an episode of content, put it up, and 130 people hear it. And that is not the case for this podcast. I actually fall in the 96th percentile, right around there. That means that 4% of the active podcasts do better than me. And that's it. And I'm in a niche. So like, I'm not just in a niche. I'm in a niche of a niche. I'm not even really diabetes. I'm type 1. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a niche-y thing.
Right.
And I look at that and I think I could probably get in the 97th percentile. It's just such a weird thought.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
No. But it stems from this. Like you're getting the benefit of my aggressive nature in that's not my motivation. My motivation is I hear people helped by the podcast and I see the numbers and I think, well, that's nice, but there are far more people who have type 1 diabetes. We're not finding those people. And that to me, like if you could get to 1 million, like, by the way, 1 million downloads a month doesn't mean 1 million people listened. It could mean, it could mean that a lesser number of people listen to 10 episodes that month or something like that. And so like, you just want to find those people. Like, there's part of me that if I didn't have the podcast, I might take the pro tip series on thumb drives and walk around the country like Johnny Appleseed, throwing them at people with insulin, because I think that would actually be helpful. I just don't know how to reach them like that, because there's plenty of people. You see it in the Facebook group all the time. Somebody will say, oh my God, like look at my variability, or my A1C is down from this to this. And I've been in this group for a year and I don't know why I didn't listen to the podcast. And then I listened to this series, like, and that's just, somebody just told me the other day, I listened to Bold Beginnings and the Defining Diabetes stuff. My A1C came down 3 points. And I was like, yeah, cool. That's good. I know. You should all go listen.
So there's people in the Facebook group that don't listen to the podcast?
Oh, Kim, overwhelmingly.
I always thought they kind of went hand in hand. And I actually found the Facebook group because I was listening to the podcast, but I'm surprised by that.
Well, trust me, I used to be surprised by it too. And the word surprised, you could also use the word really irritated. But
I guess maybe some people don't have the time for it. But
I'm beyond understanding it. But I can tell you this: there are 42,000 people in the podcast in the podcast Facebook group, and an overwhelming majority of them are actually active participants in the Facebook group, which is also not common. A lot of those Facebook groups have like big numbers, but when you go look at the number of like comments, new posts that they get, they'll get like 10 new posts a week or something. Like you'll see a group that's like, we have 80,000 members, and you look and the group has 10 posts this week.
Yeah.
My group does 85 to 125 posts a day.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And so those people are actually all active. If every one of those 42,000 people right now went and subscribed to the podcast and downloaded just the pro tip series, I'd be the biggest podcaster in the world. Like, no kidding. That's how many people are in the Facebook group not listening to the podcast. And by the way, it's not in the world. Like, you know, I don't know, Joe Rogan's got millions and millions of people listening to it. Like, I don't mean that. I just mean that, like, by downloads, I would catapult into the 99th percentile.
Well, you have to work on that, Scott. We have to push that.
Kim, I've done everything I can think to do. And
I've seen your recent posts.
Yes. What I've learned is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink water. So I don't know which one of those pronunciations was closer to being correct. You can't make people, even in the face of their own good health, you can't make them do something they don't want to do.
Well, it's funny as I say that because I've been listening probably for about a year and a half now, and I have yet to listen to any of the educational podcasts, any of the educational ones, the Bold Beginnings or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like the interviews.
Yeah, actually, so...
And that's where I go.
Podcast people like the interviews. More of the Facebook people like the management stuff better.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not dollar for dollar, but I think that if you find yourself on Facebook, you're looking for help. You're like, oh my God, my kid or me or somebody's got diabetes and this is not going well. Let me see if I can go find some people who know. They get into the group, they start hearing things that are helpful, and they fine tune something. It gets a little better. If you were freaked out because you're 40 years old and you've had diabetes for 20 years, your A1C is like 9. You've never been able to do anything about it. You go to the Facebook group, you hear a couple things, you put them into action, all of a sudden you're A1C 7. You'd be surprised how many people are just like, oh, good. Well, good enough.
Really?
Yeah, they don't have the bandwidth maybe or the time or whatever to like, let me dig in more. And I also think a lot of people don't even believe it's possible to have a low 6 or high 5 A1C.
That could be.
Yeah, so they get some benefit and they're like, good enough. That's it. I did it. And I'm telling you, I think you take the bold beginnings or, you know, when you're very first diagnosed and listen to it, or you go to the pro tip series and just listen to those 26 episodes. I would be surprised if your A1C is not in the low 6s after listening to 26 episodes of the pro tip series. That's it. Like, I just think it would be, or you'd at least have an incredible opportunity for it to be. Probably 20 hours worth of listening. And it's funny because I have people who help me with a Facebook group. Like if you got Isabel on here, which by the way, she's never coming on here, but if she does, not because I won't let her on, she doesn't want to do it. But if I let her on here, if she let herself come on here, she'd start complaining. Why won't people take better care of themselves? All they have to do is listen to this, like that kind of thing. And I know her feeling, and I used to have it too, but now I just know I keep serving the content and we grab the ones we can grab. And those people are helped. And the rest of them are not my responsibility, and I can't make them do better for themselves.
But that's great too. Yeah. So, like you said, you can only do so much.
So it's human nature. Like it's fine. Yep. Like I'm not coming down on them even. To be, I'm genuine about that. I'm not saying they're doing something wrong. I'm just saying this is just it's humanity. It's the way it works. So I mean, look at me. Even I was overweight, right? And I did the same thing you did. I used to say I carry it well or people can't tell. And that was actually true. I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, Kim, but when I went to the doctor finally, so what happened is Arden went away to college and I said to Kelly, we have to take care of ourselves. Like we did it. The kids they're adults. Like we're going to die. Like we need to do something. We've been killing ourselves to feed them and bathe them and pay for them. Like we got to do something for ourselves. So I went to Arden's endocrinologist, to Addie, who people have heard in the Defining Thyroid series. And if you haven't, you're really missing something. But I went to her and I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm like, but I don't eat a lot. I don't lose weight. I've got problems with my iron. Like I'm messed up. I'm going to die. Like, like I need to do something. So we're talking and she says, what do you mean you have to lose weight? And I was like, I think I have to lose a lot of weight. And she's like, that's ridiculous. And I stood up because I was about to get on the scale. And I said, look, I'm going to get on the scale anyway. Guess my weight. Can't hurt my feelings. We're all going to know in a second. I'm going to jump up on the scale, right? So it's fine. Just really look at me, assess me, and guess my weight. And she goes, I don't know, 175 pounds maybe. Like, and she was having trouble getting herself to 75. And I told her, I weighed myself this morning. I'm slightly over 236. And she goes, oh. And she's got this lovely accent. She goes, we get you the Wegovy. And I was like, and I go, yeah. And she goes, yeah, I think so. And I'm like, all right. So now I've lost 40 pounds. I think this morning I was like 194 something. I'm going to tell you, I can now be, not that I wasn't being honest before, but now I understand it better. And I understand not only do I not need a bunch of food, but I wouldn't want a bunch of food, that I'm still eating plenty of nutrition. And I'm eating a fraction of what I was eating before. But I can still look at myself and objectively tell you, I need to lose 15 or 20 more pounds still. Like, my body should probably be around 180 pounds, 175, 180 pounds. And I was at 236 thinking I needed to drop 20 pounds. Like, it's crazy.
Yep.
Weight in places I don't even think I knew existed, to be perfectly honest.
So what is the plan then, being on the Wegovy? When you reach your goal, do you go off of it? Do you lower your dosage? Do you know how that works?
Yeah. So because of insurance, Wegovy goes up to 2.4, and then you can't go back again. Like, you can't have your doctor say, okay, they've lost all the weight. Like, give them the 1 unit again or something like that. Or the 1 milligram. Is it milligram? I think it's milligram. So what she told me was, we'll start experimenting with shooting it further and further apart.
Okay.
So right now you do it every week, but she's like, maybe we'll do it every 10 days and see how it works, or a little farther, or maybe I won't need it anymore. I mean, you don't need it anymore, right?
Usually they say that once you go off of it, people start to gain the weight back.
Well, I'm going to tell you, if I have a GLP problem, then I'm going to have a problem going off of it. So listen, I'll stay on it forever if I have to. I don't care. Like, but I don't want to continue to lose weight. But also, I don't know that would happen. Like, isn't my body going to reach a stasis point?
I would think so.
Yeah. I'm not losing weight, by the way, because I'm not eating enough. I'm losing weight because I'm eating the correct amount and I'm fat. That's why I'm losing weight. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim's like, yeah, I hear you. I'm 5'1". Did you hear it? Did you hear me earlier tell you I was 5'1", 170 some pounds?
Yep.
I'm not going to turn into a skeleton. So I'm going to get down to the part where there's not excess fat on my body. And I think it's possible that all these generations and decades of us looking heavy around each other makes us feel like that for some reason, that like a fit body is thin for some reason. And I don't know that that's the case. So, and I'd like to put muscle on, and I'm going to try on my own. But I have to tell you, if I can't accomplish it on my own, I'm going right back to that doctor, and I'm going to go like, hey, what other intervention can I get here to make me stay alive? I'm not against staying alive anyway. It's funny. You hear people say, I can't believe you used that to lose weight. You cheated, right? Or like,
oh, yeah.
I'm in my 50s. I'm going to go back and say, look, will testosterone help me put muscle on and make me, I don't want to be big, but like healthier, stronger, support my joints, that kind of stuff. People would be like, oh, you're cheating. Don't you love that I'm cheating, but the whole world's drunk and high and they don't think anything of it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a big increase in your energy, though? I mean, are you able to exercise more where you weren't before? Or?
I had an injury that slowed me down and is still not.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, still not quite back yet. So I'm doing a little bit at a time, getting into it. I mean, the problem I'm having right now is that I'm not a person who's exercised. So, I'm in the situation that everyone who hasn't exercised is in. I have to start slowly, build up to get to something. I haven't been out of breath in a very long time. I can tell you that much.
That's how I was, though, too. I would prefer to sit on the couch and watch TV than do any kind of exercise. And once I started taking the weight off, I started just simple walking. And now I walk between 12 and 16,000 steps a day. And I think that's a big part of why I didn't put the weight back on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You've changed your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And you're not eating. And there is something, I don't know how to put it exactly, but it takes you out of your mind. Like all the things that you can think of, like, oh, wow, I might take ice cream and put like caramel syrup on top of it. Like that's a thing that from my youth, I would have loved. Right. And now if you put that in front of me, I would probably take a spoonful of it and I'd be like, oh, that was good. But then I wouldn't care for the rest of it. It would feel like just excessive to me to eat it. Or when you see greasy things with like a lot of sauce on it or something like that, I go, oh, I don't want to eat that. That's not good for me. Like, you know, when my wife went away on business, I went to the store, I got a turkey breast, chicken wings, and shrimp. And I thought, oh, this will feed me for like a week. And I smoked the turkey breast and I smoked the chicken wings. And when I wanted something kind of zesty, I had the chicken wings. And when I wanted to eat and be, you know, and just get my nutrition in, I would take the turkey breast up, like slice it up. I was putting it in with like a scrambled egg and eating it in a wrap or something like that. I eat coconut milk yogurt in the morning. I drink my AG1, like that kind of stuff, rice. But the other night I came home and I was hungry when I got home. I'd been traveling, like I said, unexpectedly, and I was back. And there was just my stuff wasn't in the house. And my wife had bought like some Trader Joe's chicken nuggets that looked very like healthy. And I warmed 4 or 5 of them up. And there were like these potato chips in the house. And I thought, oh, I'll have a couple of potato chips with these nuggets. And I ate the nuggets. And about the 3rd potato chip in, I was like, oh, this is so greasy and disgusting, these potato chips. And I put them back in the bag. Like I was turned off by them. And I think that whatever is in all this processed food that rewires our brains or our guts or tells us, you know, that we're hungry or we need sugar or whatever, I think it's once that's gone, you look at stuff and go, oh, like what is that greasy like mayonnaise on that? Like, like why would, I can't eat that. You know what I mean? Or like these chips taste like grease, but I know they would have been good chips to me a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely changes your mindset on it. And you kind of come to your senses about it.
But that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like you were being tricked forever. And now you're like, oh, you can't trick me. There's no reason for me to eat this. Like,
yes.
Like, yeah. Yep. If you took me to Burger King right now and bought me a cheeseburger, I'd be like, I please don't make me eat that. Like I couldn't do that. Even a good cheeseburger, I've had that experience that you talked about earlier. Like, and by good, I mean like, you know, like grass-fed beef and like no fillers in it. And, you know, like on a brioche bun, I could eat maybe a quarter of one of those. And then I'd be like, that's enough. Like I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fantastic. I honestly, Kim, I had a conversation with a doctor, not a doctor anybody would know. It's a person I met who's also a doctor. And I told them I can see a world where GLP medications fundamentally shift obesity and overeating in maybe a generation.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. In maybe one generation, it could actually stop the whole problem. So I'm assuming that means that like agri companies right now are trying to pressure the insurance somebody's to not cover it so that we all keep eating the way we eat or something. I imagine that's all happening in the background. And I'm not a person who's like, take medication. Like if you can't do it, take medication. I tried my goddamn hardest my whole life. It just didn't work. And I think that people who don't understand it think like, you're putting some poison in your body that's melting you away. And they're stuck on things they heard originally, like Ozempic face, for example.
Yeah, I've heard that. And I don't even know what that is. I've never seen a case of it.
Yeah. Let me tell you what it is. Bunch of people blew their bodies up big and fat, and then they deflated them, and people went, oh, you look old and kind of scraggly now. Well, yeah, because there's extra skin on your face.
So that's all they mean by the Ozempic face is just the extra skin?
Yes, but once someone says that, like the first person who goes, oh, I have Ozempic face, which means I lost a bunch of weight and my face looks like this now because I lost a bunch of weight. Then that gets out into the zeitgeist, and people are like, oh, Ozempic must make your face look weird, which it doesn't. It's just you're puffy and bloated, and now you're not anymore, and there's extra skin. And a lot of people eventually, like, it tightens up for them. I've been lucky. My face has changed, and I don't have hanging or loose skin in my cheeks around my eyes or anything like that. You know, speaking of my face, you want to talk about how your brain tricks you. As I was starting to really lose weight, like the first 15 pounds, I thought, oh, my face looks a little different. And I actually thought I looked terrific. I did something that I'll just admit to you now that I've never said. I've always wanted to do more video content for the podcast, like social media and stuff, but I didn't like the way I look, so I didn't do it. And I lost this 15 pounds. I was like, I look so much better. I made a video. Well, thank God I did, because I still have it, because a month later I made another one and I was like, oh, I did not look okay a month ago when I was down 15 pounds. Down 20 pounds, I look better. Down 25, I look better. Down 30, I look better. At 40, I look completely different. And then the strangest thing happened the other day. I got out of the shower, turned to the mirror, and I thought my face looked fat.
Really?
And I thought, oh my God, is this how quickly your brain re-sees things? Do you know what I mean? Because my face is not perfect, and there is weight to lose under my jaw, a little bit in my cheeks. That's still there, right? But I look so much different in my face at 40 pounds than I did before I started, or even at 15 pounds down. I look great now. Like I'd be happy if I look like this forever, but I'm not wrong. There's still weight in my jaw and my jowls, like under my neck. What I'm saying is, it was fascinating how quickly my brain told me, you're not there yet. And it was a different message than before, when I would look and say, oh, I can't make a video because I look fat. Like, I don't think I look fat. I just now know this is not exactly what my face is supposed to look like if my body was at the correct weight. I don't know if that difference is obvious to everybody, but it's, after going through this, it's very obvious to me, the difference.
Well, you posted the pictures on the Facebook page, and I don't know if I had ever seen pictures of you before.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't take pictures of themselves when they look fat, so I don't do that either. If you want to talk about being upset, here's something to be upset about. I now realize I have consciously, self-consciously kept myself out of photos with my kids my whole life.
Me too.
Yeah, because I didn't want them to think
I was always the one taking them.
Yeah. I also felt like, I felt like when I'm gone, I'd rather them remember me the way they thought of me than actually be able to pull up a picture and go, my dad was a fat guy. I didn't know that. Because I've had conversations with them. They don't think of me that way. It's kind of fascinating. So after I lost that first 15 pounds, I was pretty excited. And I saw my son for the first time because he wasn't living at home. We went and visited him. And I think for the first half an hour, I just stood in the room, like posing like Madonna, thinking he was going to look up at me. He's going to look up at me and go like, I think this guy's voguing. Why is he doing that? Let me look. Oh, it's because he's so thin and he wants me to know. And he's trying to get me to say something. But after a while, I just thought, he doesn't see any difference in me. So I asked him, do you see that I've lost weight? And he looked at me and he goes, no. And I said, I've lost 15 pounds. I said, I went down a t-shirt size. And he goes, yeah, I don't think of you as a fat person.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that he didn't even notice it.
Yeah. He's like, I don't think of you that way. And I was like, oh, okay. I can't wait for him to see me again, because I'm going to see him in a couple of months. And I mean, at that point, I'm probably going to be down 45. I'm going to guess about 45 pounds. And I look significantly different now. And I don't think he's going to notice. He just he doesn't care about that.
Does Arden say anything?
We had the same conversation. She's like, yeah, I don't think, she's like, I'm looking at you. I see you've lost weight. She goes, but I don't see, it doesn't feel like an improvement to me. It doesn't change how I thought about you now or then. Like, it's just, I think the kids just think of us as like our thoughts and our emotions and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I have the same thing. Like, anybody who's grown older with a person, like I said to somebody the other day, I was with my wife and someone else, and they were talking about getting older and everything. And I wasn't trying to score points or anything like that. I said exactly what I meant. Like I said, when I look at Kelly, I think of this 20-year-old girl that I went away on vacation with. Like, I'm like, that's how she looks to me. Like, that's how I think of her in my mind. Like, you know, like she's a collection of my experiences with her when I'm not with her and I think of her. But if you ask me to picture her, I almost always picture her the way I remember her on this vacation we went on when we were dating. I don't see her as like older or heavier or grayer or anything like that. She's just her. And so I think that's how my kids must think of me.
Yeah, I feel that same way about my husband too.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, they just kind of, the years just go by and you don't think anything of it.
Mm. Yeah, no, you're just a collection of memories at that point, not necessarily a thing. And I think that's why, like the other day, I was leaving Arden and I was saying goodbye to her roommates, and I was joking. I went into the one girl's room and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm supposed to call that girl Heather." I'm like, "Hey, Heather," it's not really her. And I said, "I'm leaving now. I'm sorry I'm glad we got to see each other. I'm sorry it was under like kind of these circumstances. What I'm most sorry about is that we didn't have time for you to really absorb how thin I am." And she's like laughing, and I was laughing, and Arden goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." And so we went over to the next person to say goodbye, and I'm like, I can't remember what I'm supposed to call this girl. So I'm like, "Hey," I'm like, and Arden looks at me, she's like, "He's going to do the same bit for her he just did for the other one." So I get to the point where I'm going to say, "I'm so sorry you didn't get to like really absorb how thin I am." And Arden goes, "That's enough. Just let's go."
We're done here.
And her friend goes, "Let him finish." And she goes, "I already know what he's going to say." and I'm just doing that to make Arden laugh. So, anyway.
That's great.
It's completely life-changing. And, it's amazing. So.
It really is.
Yeah. I'm very hopeful that it'll be, that insurance will allow us to find a way to help type 1s with it. I think we're going to. And I don't think it's going to work for everybody. I think it's going to be just like everyone else. Like some people might not have a good time. I've talked to people who are like, "Look, I got so sick on it. I had horrible diarrhea or like my stomach hurt. I had to stop." Now, I wasn't with those people. I don't know how they tried to eat while they were on it. I don't know if maybe they thought this was a magic weight loss drug and you inject it and you just keep eating and you lose weight. That's not the case. You can eat through it. Like you can willfully just keep eating and you will feel bloated and stuffed and probably vomit and like have terrible like GI problems. So I don't know if there are some people who are just like keep eating the same crappy way they always ate and thought they were going to magically lose weight, or if it really is just something that some people can't tolerate. And I think time's going to figure that out for us.
I had a lot of issues from it. I actually reached a point where I called the nurse that was in charge of the study and begged her to take me off of it.
How come?
I just, the constant fullness. And like I said, I wasn't eating much at all. And I don't know, it felt like it was, at the time, it felt like it was ruining my life. Like I said, I was asleep all summer long. I was asleep at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I just didn't want to do anything. I couldn't eat anything. I didn't want to go out because I'd go out to dinner with a group of friends and they'd all order and eat. And I'd just sit and look at my food. And just the way my stomach felt. And do you ever get the sulfur taste in your mouth? Oh,
no, I don't, but I've heard people talk about it.
Yeah. That was really bad too. And the indigestion, it got bad for a while.
Yeah.
And I was lucky. I never vomited, but I felt like I was going to quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. I felt like I've swallowed my food and there's a rock in my sternum, like it stopped there. And it hadn't. I mean, obviously it's passing through and everything's fine. But I also tried to do other things. Magnesium oxide to make sure I kept going to the bathroom so that the process would keep happening, like so the food could keep passing through. There was a time where I got constipated, so I added fiber, and that was scary because I thought, what if the fiber goes in and it doesn't come out? So like I took like a little bit of fiber to try to like get through that bad week. But what I'm saying is I saw we were going in the right direction. And there were speed bumps, but I was like, I'm going to find a way around each and every one of these speed bumps because I'm not going to stop. And there were times I had to take Tums because of the heartburn. And, I take your point about going out to eat and being like, everybody's buying food. And you're like, yeah, I'll take a bite of that. But my wife and I kind of turned it into a game. Like I would order like one thing and she'd order one thing and we'd kind of pick from it. And we'd be like, we're done. And then like, so you take it home, you could live off it for like 2 days after that.
Right.
I don't know what I would have done if too early on I would have had those problems. I might have bailed too. You know what I mean? And it's not going to be for everybody. Like, I'm not saying everyone's going to have my experience with it. I don't think that's true. But I just think that the experience that I've had, I've lived through it long enough now that I'm out the other side. And I just see food differently than I did before I started.
Are you on the highest dose now?
Yeah, I've been on the highest dose for a while.
when I called her and asked her to take me off of it, with Ozempic, you start on the 0.25 and then the 0.5 and then the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And at the point where I was when I asked to be taken off of it, I was at the 1, and she was able to move me back down to the 0.5, and then I was okay.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was just being on the highest dose was just too much for me.
Right. I kept pushing. I was like, this part's unpleasant. I'm going to go. I want to see what it means to get to the end of this. But there were days where like you didn't eat much at all, or like there were days I'd make like a bowl of chicken soup, like just an 8-ounce can of soup. And like halfway into it, I was like, oh, that's enough.
Yep.
Like,
that's exactly how I was.
Yeah.
And did you notice it a lot then when you got to that highest dose? Did it make a big difference in all of that, your side effects or anything, or not so much?
What I noticed was that it was hard to get through. And then once I got through and I've been on the highest dose for a while, I'm okay now.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, like my body adjusted to it eventually.
That's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I could talk about it forever. I got, the other day I was somewhere and the woman said to me, you were just in here buying shirts. And I was like, yeah. She goes, why are you back so soon? I said, I went down another size. So I went from a 2X t-shirt to a large.
That's great.
So I was back buying shirts and I said, I've recently lost a lot of weight. And I was here. I bought a couple of shirts. By the way, this is my plan. I've done it with underwear and shirts. I buy enough to keep me going, knowing they're going to get thrown away because I'm going to keep losing weight and I'm going to need more. And so I was back and the woman asked me, how'd you lose weight that fast? And I was telling her and she's just like, what's this now? And then this girl, like I'm explaining it to her. And then this girl comes around who works there. This girl was young, 18, 20, 21 years old, tall. She was probably 6 feet tall, but she had to have weighed well over 300 pounds. And so she's like, I've been losing weight this year too. She's on a medication for migraines that the side effect of it is weight loss. I don't know anything more about it than what she said, right? But she's like, I've already lost 60 pounds this year. And she's like, but tell me more about this. And as I was telling her about it, you could just see on her face, like, hope. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was like, maybe that would work for me. And I was like, you should try. I'm like, I don't know if you'll have the same experience I did, but I don't know that there's harm in trying. And she's like writing it down. And she's like, I'm going to go talk to my parents. I'm still on their insurance. They have good insurance. I think I'll be able to get this. And I was like, okay. I was like, good luck. But, I don't know. Like, listen, if you're 300 pounds, you're 6 feet tall and you're comfortable with yourself, I'm not telling you need to lose weight. I'm certainly not saying that. This is just my experience. But, I'm standing in front of a stranger who's in that exact situation. And she just I think you were in that situation. She's like, I'm never going to see you again. And she's like, I need to do something. And I was like, okay. She's like, I think my whole life's going to get ruined if I don't figure something out. And I was like, well, good luck. And I don't know if I'll ever be back there again. I mean, I don't imagine I'm going below a large, to be perfectly honest. If I end up in a medium.
You never know.
No, my body structure, there was a way I held all that weight and people didn't exactly know. I'm pretty broad at my shoulders through my chest and everything. I don't see how I could get. Yeah, I don't see. There's no more to go. Like this shirt's hanging on my, on my body now, not on. It's not being puffed out by insulation. Anyway, Kim, I don't know what the hell happened in this episode. Do you have diabetes? Did we talk about that at all?
What's it?
Do you have diabetes? Did we talk about that?
I think I do.
So you like the conversational stuff, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I
So
do.
you're not bothered when you get to the end of it and I'm like, I just talked about GLP and nobody mentioned diabetes for more than 5 minutes. That's okay for you, right?
I like it. I like the personalities of it, and I enjoy it. You go for a walk with me every day, so
that's lovely.
Keeps me entertained.
It was nice of you to come and see me when I was in Orlando. I appreciate that very much.
It was great to meet you.
Yeah, no,
it was a wonderful event.
Oh, don't they do a nice job?
Oh, yeah. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, let me just say this: touchedbytype1.org. You should go check that out too.
Yeah, it was great.
While I'm supporting advertisers, while I'm talking, there you go. They were the very first people who ever let me speak at an event.
Oh, really?
Yes. And up until then, no one came to me because I didn't have diabetes. And if they talked to me about something, they were like, you just talk about being the parent and how hard that is. And I'm like, no, thanks. But somebody there was listening to the podcast and had some real benefits from it for their child. And so during a meeting, that person said to them, like, I think we should have this guy talk about diabetes. And I came down, I did their first event. I've been at every one of their events, and they do a lovely job. It gets bigger and better every year. And just a wonderful group. And I very much like being a part of it. Yeah, they do a nice job.
Throughout the event, they talked a lot about the growth through the years. And I would assume you had a lot to do with that, because I don't think I talked to anybody who didn't bring up your name or the podcast.
Oh, that's nice. I'm not going to say that.
I will.
You can say whatever you want,
Really,
Kim.
though, I talked to quite a few people, and I mean, I saw the amount of people sitting in that room when you were speaking.
Yeah. No, it's nice. I draw a crowd.
Absolutely. It was so interesting, too.
I actually have from here, I'm trying to find it for you now, Elizabeth, who, runs Touched by Type 1. Mm-hmm. She's the founder and the president of it. I asked her after the last time I spoke, I never do the things that other people do. I'm like, could you give me a quote? I was like, because I'd like to do more speaking. Can you just give me a quote about having me at your event? I'd like to use it like in social media and stuff. And so I actually just got this back from her the other day. She said, Scott Benner is our top speaker year after year. The largest crowds are always dedicated to his sessions and consistently have the highest rated feedback. He's developed sessions tailored to a variety of age groups, and a large part of our conference turnout is due to attendees coming specifically to hear him speak. His personable and welcoming demeanor makes him a joy to host, and we look forward to his participation for many years to come. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I actually haven't absorbed that yet because it just arrived, but it was nice. It was nice to share it here. I appreciate Elizabeth being so kind, and hopefully other people will invite me out. I draw a crowd and I do a good job once I'm there, and I work hard. I see other speakers. Don't worry. I see them. They come, they take their money, they give you crap, and they walk out.
Well, that was the thing. You made it entertaining. It wasn't just do this, do this, do this. It was, I don't know. There's more personality in it when you were speaking.
Ah, you're very nice. That's lovely. Thank you. And I'm thin now, so it's easier to look at me. Actually,
and you are thin.
Actually, I don't imagine anybody had a tough time looking at me prior, but it's easier for me to stand up there. I don't think about angles as much or how I must look like to people. That was a thing I had to give away when I started doing public speaking. I thought, I know I don't look good up there. I have to let that go. But as an example, Touched by Type 1 last year, like not this past one, but the one prior to that, the videographer came around when I was speaking and I said, listen to me, you shoot me from the back of the room and do not stand under this riser and shoot up at me. I'm like, do not do it.
Really? You were that bothered by it, huh?
I was that bothered by it. I was like, do not do that. Shoot me from far away and do not come up from underneath of me. Like I said, as a matter of fact, if you could suspend yourself from the ceiling, that'd be the way to do this. It's like a selfie angle. Come down for me from an angle. And this year I got there, I never thought about it.
That's great.
Yeah, it was really freeing, actually. So,
like you said, just life-changing. Just to not worry about those things anymore is wonderful.
It's the best thing I've done for myself personally as an adult. So, yeah. So anybody who would come to me and say you cheated or anything like that, I would just look at them and go, oh, you could go fuck yourself.
It infuriates me whenever anybody says that. I did what I had to do. And I didn't even do it for the weight loss. It was just an unexpected benefit. Mm-hmm. My husband and I were actually on vacation and I got a call from the woman running the study. My doctor had given her my name and she's telling me about it. And she's talking about the diabetes and everything. And I'm, like I said, I'm in a hotel room in Vegas. I'm like, I just need to get back out and do my thing. Could you hurry up? And all of a sudden she's like, and there's a chance you could lose a little bit of weight. I'm like, say what? Come again?
Hold on.
And she started telling me more about it, and I was hooked, and I didn't even plan on it, and it just kind of fell into place.
I don't know how often I've said this, but my wife works in drug safety. She has her whole life. So there are people at pharma companies whose job it is to make sure you're safe. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of understanding regulations and a lot of going to other parts of the business and telling them things they don't want to hear because it's for safety reasons, She's very good at it. But about a decade ago, maybe, my wife was at Novo Nordisk for maybe 4 years. She might have worked there. She came home one day and she said, I'm seeing this data And I'm pretty comfortable saying that one day there's going to be an injectable weight loss drug that's actually going to make people lose significant amounts of weight.
Really?
And she's like, yeah, I think it's going to change hunger and like a lot of things. And she just said that to me offhandedly one day. And some 10 years later, maybe I'm using it. And she is too, by the way. It's kind of crazy. She's like, I can't believe this stuff worked. Because, you know, they put so much stuff through R&D that doesn't go anywhere, you know?
Right.
And she's like, yeah, this is crazy. So there it is. Like we're using the thing that she talked about all those years ago. She's like, I saw data and it really looks promising. That's all she said.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So I'm not saying everybody should run out and get it. I'm not saying if you have 15 pounds to lose, maybe you shouldn't try a sit up first. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that, but at the same time, I'm not here to judge anybody. If it's 15 pounds, it could make you feel the way I've described. If it's 115 pounds, like whatever. I put my picture up online and people came in and shared their photos of, like, it brought a lot of people out of the woodwork who were like, hey, I'm using Ozempic or I'm on Wegovy and look at this. And one guy lost like over 100 pounds. He's like a completely different person. You know, it's fantastic.
Well, look at the celebrities.
Yeah. No.
And people are bad mouthing them too. They're people too. Who cares?
Yeah. You're not going to catch me saying anything bad about people trying to help themselves. That's for sure.
No.
I've heard thin people say, I've worked my whole life to stay thin. I've restricted my calories and I've worked out, and it feels upsetting that you got a cheat code for it. When I hear people say that, I would tell them, look, that may be the case for some people, but for a lot of other people, I don't know that I think it's just physiological. And, you know, or maybe it's social, or maybe it's financial. Maybe they just can't afford good food. Like, it's easy to hear a famous person say, I've tried really hard, but yeah, you can afford good food. And you can, you know, I always love it when you hear somebody who's famous go, all you have to do is work out. I'm like, yeah, your job is 3 hours a day. You make a podcast for 3 hours a day. Yeah, you can go work out. You have nothing else to do.
And you have a gym in your house.
Yeah. How about, or a trainer comes and helps you, or whatever. You have like access. Most people are working 8 hours a day and commuting another 2 hours a day. And by the way, they have to sleep and they have children. And the toilet needs to be scrubbed. When do you want them to go to the gym, The Rock? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like, I guess if I made Jumanji, I could spend some time in the gym too. But sadly, no one's come calling yet, so I'm going to have to do my job. You know, it's a weird thing to hear famous people whose lives are different as far as the structure of their days go tell you, hey, you know, here's what you should do. You make a lot more money than I do. Like, you can afford to eat foods that aren't processed. And if you don't know what those foods are, you can afford to hire somebody to tell you what those foods are.
Right.
And then you can afford the time to work out. I'm not saying they still don't have to do the work. They're obviously still doing the work, but I don't know that they always see the impacts that like a regular person has in their day. You know, that's all. All right. Yep, Kim, I was incredibly chatty during this one, so I apologize up front. I'm going to let you go because you must have a life you have to get back to.
It's all good. I had a great time.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that we should have? I'm glad you had a good time.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we didn't have a big plan on this one, really. So when you said I've been on Ozempic, I was like, I never have an opportunity to talk about this outside of the diaries that I make.
Right.
Which people are enjoying. I didn't realize.
Oh, I listen to all of them. It's funny because I compare myself at each stage that you're at.
Oh, like where I'm at now versus, some of the days are like, yeah. So for people who don't know, every day I inject my Wegovy while I'm making a diary. So I sit down, I just off the top of my head reminisce about the week prior. I inject it and I pop out, and then the next week it comes up. And after the episode's like 30, 35 minutes long, I just put it out. That's the extent of my prep on that one. But I thought, like, I didn't imagine people would like it, but I actually started getting people writing notes about it. So I was like, oh, cool. Yeah.
It's very interesting. You're covering everything with it. So it's been very helpful.
Oh, it's good to know. Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing here, Kim. I'm just doing my best. And whatever works. And
well, keep it up.
Thank you. Hold on one second for me. Having an easy to use and accurate blood glucose meter is just one click away. ContourNext.com. Juicebox. That's right, today's episode is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. I want to thank the Eversense CGM for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Learn more about its implantable sensor, smart transmitter, and terrific mobile application at eversensecgm.com/juicebox. Get the only implantable sensor for long-term wear. Get Eversense. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. If you're not already subscribed or following in your favorite audio app, please take the time now to do that. It really helps the show. And get those automatic downloads set up so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.